teraflex and MetalCloak, they don't mix. So you're gonna wanna pick one or the other. My name is Teddy, this is Unwinding Roads, and I've been lucky enough to run both sets of suspensions, and I'm gonna give you my opinion about which one edges out the other in this video. To be clear, I don't think there is a real debate here. Both offer great kits and are extremely high quality. Install of these are about the same with minor differences. This video has taken well over a year for me to make because I wanted to be very sure on what I was saying. If you're watching this video to help decide which lift kit you'd rather run, you're about to spend your hard-earned money, and I take that very seriously. Starting with a big one when choosing your lift kit, the MetalCloak control arms. They are better than the teraflex, partly from design for clearance and mostly because of their patented Duroflex bushings, which are awesome. And if you need to change them.
So with the MetalCloak arms, as you can see here, they have a snap ring in it. So these bushings are replaceable, and you can upgrade them to, or not upgrade them so much, but you can replace them if they get worn out. They're actually really good bushing for this setup.
These bushings are designed for ride comfort and are self-centering. They allow for more flex. Once they've been adjusted for length, install is easy. Next, we have the springs. This made a huge difference to my ride height. I gained about 1 inch all around in height. Just look at the difference of the springs. Also, when I tow, the hitch weight doesn't affect the truck ride as much as it did with the Teraflex HD springs. Towing with this MetalCloak setup is so nice and smooth.
Slightly thicker.
Lastly, the steering components. Running big tires do wear out your steering components, and you'll start to feel that slop. This MetalCloak HD steering system tightened everything up, and a year later still feels just as it did the day Epic Adventure Outfitters installed it. See? But that was not in stock. That was not an option.
Not an option?
No. So this is actually my second Gladiator, the first being a manual transmission gas Gladiator that was on a 4.5 inch Evo setup. It did run the Falcon 3.3s as the shocks, which I love those shocks. I was able to make the suspension super soft for off-roading and real stiff for when I was on the highway. Fast forward a little bit, I ended up getting my second Gladiator. This is the Eco Diesel model. Has a lot more weight, and I ended up going with the Teraflex 3.5 inch lift. Long story short, once you add the winch, the bumper, the gear in the back, the normal Teraflex suspension just doesn't do it. If you're keeping everything stock, you're not putting on bumpers, you're leaving the truck the way it is, it's gonna work just fine. I was hitting bump stops like crazy. I wasn't too happy with that setup at all. Went back to Epic Adventure Outfitters, explained the situation, and then I got some Eco Diesel specific springs, which they didn't have at the time when I originally got the truck, but they did have it at that time. And they had the HD coils for the back. Threw that in there. Again, it was great at first. Once those springs softened up a little bit, I ended up right back in the same boat. Once you add the gear in the back and everything, it just weighed it down too much. And we're talking the teraflex springs, they don't actually post the ratings on there, but they're good for about 350 pounds. So if you have more than 350 pounds in the back, even the HD springs are not gonna cut it. Fast forward a little bit more, sitting around a campfire with Mike Upchurch from MetalCloak, and I'm just explaining my situation. We start talking about the MetalCloak suspension. Well, it turns out this is why they don't mix. Teraflex uses a very soft coil with a stiffer shock. And with MetalCloak, the opposite is true. So you'd be running with MetalCloak a stiffer spring with a softer shock. Now, why does that matter? I'll tell you why that matters huge is when you start loading the vehicle up. I'm sure there's benefits to it when you don't load the vehicle up. The one thing about MetalCloak is they're constantly testing and checking out what else is on the market. It's something that they do religiously and they're super passionate about it. You know, MetalCloak is not a faceless company. You could jump on their YouTube channel and you'll see exactly who's working on what when it comes to MetalCloak, which is another bonus in my opinion. But getting back to the stiffer coils, once you load the vehicle up with the stiffer coils, you're not gonna get as much of sag, which is huge. I see so many Gladiators out there, especially Wranglers too, where the rear is down. It looks like they got the Carolina squat going. They got the rear down and the front end up, and it just, I don't know, it looks funny, and I'm sure you're losing a lot of articulation when you're doing that. Now, not to bash on Teraflex, I actually loved my Teraflex suspension before I knew better. I absolutely loved it. Where it does edge out MetalCloak is on the road comfort. So MetalCloak is an off-road suspension. Everything they do is for more articulation and to make your rig better off-road. That being said, it's not that much worse on the road. My truck goes straight. I can go 80 miles an hour, no problem. Especially with the steering components, it's just, everything feels great. Driving around town, for example, manholes, with this current suspension, I still feel the manholes. Like when I hit them, it feels like a bump. With the control arms, they have those bushings where you feel the little bit of a wobble. It's very slight, but it's there. Very little bit of a wobble when you hit those sorts of bumps like manholes or something like that. The bigger bumps, it kind of helps with the bigger bumps. It soaks it up a little bit better so you don't get it as much. It's just those little bumps. Whereas in the Teraflex felt very soft. When I drove over a manhole, I barely felt it at all. A little bit more comfortable ride. By a little bit, I mean out of 10, 10 being a Cadillac, the Teraflex was riding at about an 8 and the MetalCloak is riding at about a 7.8. That's how minimal the difference is. Now when you start going off-road, that's where the MetalCloak stuff shines. This suspension flexes way more. I don't even know in inches how much. It's just way more than the Teraflex suspension. It's not even close. Now, mind you, I am running the Rock Sport Reds, and these are like $200 for a pair of shocks. Whereas in the Falcon 3.3s, you're looking at about $2,000 for a pair of the Teraflex 3.3s, which is what I was running before. Keep that in mind as I'm going through all this. Perhaps with a better set of shocks, that the road mannerisms would change a little bit. One thing I am a huge fan of is the adjustability of the shocks. As much as I love to have that soft suspension off-road, I really do love having a stiff suspension on the highway to get to those places. This is not a trailer queen. I drive it to the trailhead, with the longest trip so far being driving down from Canada West Coast down to Moab, and with the current suspension exactly the way it is now, I had zero issues whatsoever. It was a comfortable drive, absolutely perfect. I would have liked to stiffen it up a little bit if I could, go through the turns a little quicker, but hey, this is where we're at right now. While in Moab, Ed from Lehman Upfit has a Gladiator, similar lift with the Rock Sport Blacks, adjustable shocks. And we were off-roading, and once you start off-roading, the Rock Sport Reds do, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but where they get kind of mushy. And I'd hit one bump and it would feel like 3 or 4 bumps, you know? Nothing against the suspension at all. It's just the shocks. Well, I guess that's part of the suspension, but you know what I mean. You gotta keep in mind, I'm comparing a $200 a pair shock to a $1,000 a pair shock. So there's gonna be some differences there. Ed's Gladiator was the best Gladiator I've ever driven, period. Off-road, it just soaked up the bumps. Everything was articulating the way it should. and it was awesome. So eventually down the line, I would like to get the Rocksport Blacks. They are expensive. They're about $1,000 more for the set than the Falcon 3.3s. Are you getting that much more out of it? I don't know yet. I don't have them on hand, but stay tuned because eventually I will be getting them. We'll throw them in here and we'll be able to really compare apples to apples. Guys, you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm no engineer or anything like that. I don't pretend to be. What I'm doing in this review is just giving you real life experience of what I actually went through. I didn't realize until after I filmed all that I didn't even talk about the most important thing, which is what I see a bunch of people doing, which is running the Falcon 3.3s with the MetalCloak springs. I'm going to tell you why that's a bad idea. As mentioned before, Teraflex uses soft springs with a stiff shock. MetalCloak uses a stiffer spring with a softer shock. So by using the Falcon 3.3s with the MetalCloak springs, you're getting a stiff shock with a stiff coil. You'd have to run those shocks on the softest setting to make them at all comfortable, which defeats the whole purpose of having adjustable shocks. Now what people have been doing to combat that is if you have a 4-door, you get the 2-door shocks. If you have an Eco Diesel, then you would get the 4-door shocks or even the 2-door shocks. But again, you're mix matching and that's not quite the way it works. You see, MetalCloak dials in everything to work together. So even my Rocksport red shocks, remember this is $200 a set for these shocks, are designed to work with the coils. It's a dual rate coil and it has a proprietary dual tube or twin tube construction so that it works with the coils. The Falcon 3.3s don't have that. So it's funny because I don't think anybody's gonna argue that the Rocksport Reds are a better shock than the Falcon 3.3s, but with the setup, it drives so much better with these Rocksport Reds than it did with the Falcon 3.3s. Anyways, back to the video. Let's talk durability for a second. My MetalCloak stuff has held up great. That gold zinc is doing its job. However, the ends are rusting. My teraflex stuff was also rusting. The tops of the shocks began to rust, and they do have a coating to protect from that, but it was beginning to rust. The bushings in my shocks twice popped out with the teraflex ones. I've had no issues whatsoever with the MetalCloak suspension, and honestly, I've put the MetalCloak suspension through harder trails. I've beat up on the suspension more than the teraflex stuff for no reason other than just myself growing as a overlander and as a, I guess, rocklander is the word to describe what I do a little bit better. I do have full skids from MetalCloak that I'll also be putting on here, so stay tuned for that as well. The only reason why they're not in there yet is I have a funny thing where I don't want to have clean skid plates. To me, that just looks funny. And nobody's gonna see it, it's just I know that they're clean. So I'm gonna put them on before heading out. I think the Rubicon is gonna be the next trail. But if not, I'll be using Onyx Offroad to see what trails I can scratch those up on.
Let me take a very quick break to show you what I mean with this video sponsor, Onyx Offroad. Using the search feature, I can look for a trail that will be more difficult and filter out any of the easy routes. This makes the choose your own adventure much easier. Because difficulty is relevant, once you find one that looks good, you can see in the pictures to confirm. Here you can see a moderate trail that looks pretty easy for a Gladiator on 37s. And here you can see a difficult trail that might be a bit too much for a Gladiator on 37s, unless you really want to break in those skid plates. Scan the barcode to get started with Onyx Offroad and save 20%, or even just start your free trial.
So I'm gonna give it to you straight. Which one is better? Better really depends on you and what you're going to be doing. You do have to be very careful with growing in this space. If you're sort of newish to this rock landing, overlanding, I guess even rock crawling, it's very easy to go with the good, cheaper option, even though prices on both of these setups is almost identical. But what I found is as you start exploring more and more, you're going to run into situations where you're gonna want that extra little bit. You know, with the Teraflex suspension, I was lifting a wheel pretty often. And I know what you're thinking looking at these images is, oh, I'm never gonna do something like that. That was me. That was 100% me. I just wanted to hit the dirt roads, go camping, until those dirt roads to camping got me to cooler places, and the harder the trails were, it seemed like the cooler the places were. And then I started getting excited about the obstacles, and here we are. Things happen slowly, and you can always build up as you go along. But again, even with the MetalCloak stuff, you're gonna be able to upgrade it as you go along. Like I said, right now I'm running $200 a pair of shocks, you know, and eventually I'll be getting the more expensive shocks. If it's your daily driver, you barely ever see dirt, the teraflex suspension is going to be a good option. I just found that, like I said, the smoother on-road characteristics of it were nice. But again, I think once you put the better shocks in here, you could run Fox shocks in here with this setup. I think it would smooth it out a little bit better. I'm pretty sure. So even that, I barely give the edge to teraflex. I have no bias here. I have the logo on the side of my truck from MetalCloak. They didn't ask me to do that. I just did it because I'm super happy about this suspension, and I just want people to take a very good look at the MetalCloak suspension before you go. And you know, the teraflex suspension isn't cheap, so take a good look at the MetalCloak suspension before you actually pull the trigger on the two. You can't really go wrong with either one. My personal experience and my personal opinion is to go with the MetalCloak. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, go away, get lost, and unwind. Make sure you subscribe because we take this thing out on some pretty cool trails and we're constantly upgrading it. So thank you very much for watching. See you next time.